We'll bounce back into the Kings in a few moments, but it's a pleasure now to be joined by Bruce Feldman from The Athletic. He's a national college football insider, and Bruce is well connected in this industry and wrote an amazing piece on one of our own, a local guy, Cam Skattebo, obviously played high school ball here in our area at Rio Linda, then went to Sacramento State, and now is on that national stage at Arizona State and just killing it and into that quarterfinal round that a lot of people here rooting for him. But Bruce, joining me, Jason Ross here on the show. Bruce, Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us.
Happy New Year, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed your article from The Athletic, and if everybody hasn't seen it, certainly go check it out. You did a really nice deep dive into Cameron Skattebo's parents, his brother, coaches at all sorts of levels. And it kind of, I guess, was always there, seemingly, some of the stories you were able to dig up, that this guy truly is something special.
Yeah, it was interesting because obviously I've followed Cam's story from afar, and I had talked to him at Big 12 Media Days this summer for a little while. And, he'd always been I work on the Big Noon show for Fox, and Mark Ingram, my colleague, the former Heisman Trophy winner, a huge fan of Skattebo. He was like kind of this kind of culture among our own group. And I had once sent Mark the video of Cam from the state title game where he breaks 11 tackles. I mean, it doesn't look real. It looks like, something you'd see in a movie. And, I'm watching him in the Big 12 title game. He's running all over Iowa State and just, making them look like, peewee players compared to him. And I was like, I wanted the idea for the story was asking people who've been around him, when was the moment they realized, whoa, this guy's just way different? And with that as like kind of the premise of the story, I started getting amazing stories, from his dad, from his mom, from his brother, as you said, but from, his high school coach and guys who coached against him and different, there's a coach in that area, Chris Horner, great storyteller, like Cam's high school coach connected me with him, and, Jack Garso, great storyteller. And I think what is so cool about this story is so many people, especially back then, were like, we know he's special, even if all these other big schools aren't interested. And this year, the last 2 years really has been validation of, oh yeah, we were right. We weren't imagining that he was this super talented, next level kind of player. And so just to see that, obviously happy for Cam, because there's a lot of stuff as I got into the story, stuff I didn't know about, in his own background, that he's had to overcome and battle through. And he has.
As we're talking with Bruce Feldman from The Athletic, Bruce, I call games for Sacramento State, so I got a chance and was lucky enough to call his 2 years as a Hornet, and I think about plays where he would seek contact. I think about an onside kick where he literally carried about 6 players into the end zone with him that he returned, from about the 35-yard. I mean, there were so many plays that I think back that I just marvel at him. And then when I started reading your story, I think about the one story I believe his mom was telling about his dad playing softball, and he, basically like Spider-Man scurries up the chain link fence behind the dugout and above, and he's now looking over the top of his dad playing softball. Everybody's freaking out, and he's a toddler, and he just climbs back down like Spider-Man, and it's like, yeah, this all kind of checks out. I mean, it's just he's kind of one of one. He's really a unique player, isn't he?
He is. I mean, just a unique talent. I mean, just beyond the player. You talk to Coach Agnew, who was the running backs coach there, as you know, at Sac State, now he's at Stanford. And he was like, he's a great baseball player. I think at some point people think he's probably even more talented at that, which is hard to believe considering how talented he is at this, right? Where his incredible balance and strength, but also like his will and determination all are big parts of what makes him such a special running back, and so, they're talking about all this. I can only imagine what it was like for you to see him there, and now to see this is like, yeah, it all checks out. That story his mom told me just really kind of blew my mind. It sounded like, I'm imagining like the little kid from The Incredibles.
Yes.
In the movie, like he was that. And just the bike, once I heard his dad told me the bicycle story when he's not even 3 years old. I was like, I called my editor and I was like, I have a great Cam Skattebo story that I'm going to write, and it's just because the stories are so amazing.
Talking with Bruce Feldman. So Bruce, while he was here as a Hornet, I mean, he was great. He was Conference Player of the Year his second year, then goes into the transfer portal. And me, like a lot of people, it was sad to see him go. And I thought, well, at ASU, I mean, it's an opportunity then in the Pac-12, now in the Big 12. Like, I think he'll do some things, but I'm, maybe a little even curious how he'll do at that level. And he's just been absolutely amazing. So then if we fast forward that as a professional, I mean, every time people doubt Cam, he comes through. What kind of a pro prospect is he?
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt him at this point. Like, I mean, you're seeing what he's doing there. He's got himself in better shape, too. I mean, one other thing that, it didn't end up in the story, but, like, Cam and some of his coaches actually had said, like, it wasn't like he was a track kid who was running 4.35, in high school. So I think there was a question of, like, would his speed, at that point, would that limit him? And, we've seen him continue to elevate himself. And he did that this off season, as he told me. So again, we see a lot of guys in the NFL who are really physical, punishing runners. Very few are like Saquon Barkley, where you're seeing 70-yard runs in these long runs. It's a lot of times the guys who are, whether it's Josh Jacobs or you can go down the list, there's a lot of guys in the NFL who don't run. They're really good running backs who don't run 4.45 or faster, who have a lot of success in staying power. I would, at this point, I would not bet against him. I think, to see what he's done, again, he's run against some really good teams. Now, I'm excited to see what he does tomorrow night, on an even bigger stage. And he has called his shot. I mean, he's not been shy at all about what he thinks, he can do and why, honestly, why would he not think otherwise? He's proven it every time. He's the guy for a long time since he's over delivered. And so, I wouldn't doubt him. I think you'd be a fool to doubt him.
Tomorrow they are, I think, about 13, 14-point underdogs against Texas. Just as far as the game goes, I don't doubt him. Can his team pull off that upset?
I think it's a long shot to think they will, just because I think Texas has too many weapons on offense. And I think, again, where they've had trouble, and this being Texas, where they've had trouble, is when Georgia really got after them. And they are, Georgia's different kind of, players than what ASU has, in the defensive front, but a lot of credit to Kenny Dillingham. He is a very creative, aggressive coach. And what I think, and, Kenny and some of his coaches echoed this, you watch them play, especially you watch them in that Big 12 title game. They were without their best receiver, and they are feeding off of Cam's energy. You could see that, their freshman quarterback. There are guys who are like elevating, because I feel like it's like they're all kind of in that moment where it's almost like a basketball team where, one guy starts raining in threes, and then all of a sudden it's like guys who normally don't shoot that well are all of a sudden hitting them. I feel like that's how they are. But, this is going to be obviously the biggest test because Texas is so loaded on both sides of the ball.
Talking with Bruce Feldman from the Athletic National College Football Insider. A great story on local product here, Cam Skattebo, and he's in that quarterfinal run. Do you have a pick? We're here to the top 8 seeds are all left. Who's the last one standing, do you think, Bruce? This
tournament, I picked Oregon. A big part of it was because the quarterback that they have, Dylan Gabe, was the one I have the most confidence in on a big stage. And I'm going to stick with it. Now, I picked Ohio State in the beginning of the year and then picked them in the, at midseason, even after they lost to Oregon. But that game they had against Michigan, which I was at the end of the year, was sobering, and just wonder, they've been wildly inconsistent. I think whereas Oregon hasn't, it wouldn't surprise me if Ohio State ended up beating them by 2 touchdowns. But by the same token, I just have a little more confidence because I feel like I know what I'm getting with Oregon. Whereas Ohio State and some of these other teams. You could say the same about Georgia and Texas, certainly too. They're really inconsistent, So at this point, I'm going to go with the quarterback who's played a lot of big games. They have a lot of good players on both sides of the ball. They're good on special teams. My hunch is Oregon ends up at the end of this, giving Phil Knight his first college football national title at 86 or 87 or whatever it is.
Bruce, I want to ask you one more thing locally here about Sacramento State. I saw you posted on Twitter about, they were going to hire a general manager, which is something that's kind of relatively new here to a lot of FBS programs. The Hornets are a team that's trying to move up. If they can get that invite to one of these conferences, they hire Brennan Marion from UNLV. They're up-and-coming offensive coordinator. So there's a lot of noise out here about some of the moves they've made. Just your thought on kind of that GM hiring, Marion's hiring, and what that could ultimately mean for Sacramento State's future.
Yeah, I think it was a good hire. I mean, you got a guy, Simon, who had been a front office guy in the CFL for a decade and had been a GM, this past year for a CFL franchise. Brennan Marion's super sharp. He's one of the brighter offensive minds who's come into college football in a while. He was successful at the FCS level, and for people who don't know much about his story, I mean, he was a terrific college receiver and played in the NFL. He kind of has bet on himself everywhere he's been. He has his go-go offense, and it was interesting. When Barry Odom got the job to be the head coach, only 2 years ago, he hired Bobby Petrino to be the offense coordinator. Obviously, Petrino was a big name. Petrino ends up bailing, after about a month to go to Texas A&M, and he gives Brennan Marion a shot. And Brennan Marion crushes it. I mean, and the thing that impressed me the most is the first month of the season, going into the year, they have one of the best quarterbacks, in the conference go down. They plug in a redshirt freshman who's never played, Jaden Mayava. He leads them to the best season in like 40 years. And then he goes off to USC. They have another guy come in a transfer, Matt Sluka. He's a starter for a month. He ends up leaving the team. The backup, Hodge Malik Williams, comes in, and he ends up leading him to an even better season. I just think no matter who his quarterback is, no matter who's on his offense, they're going to move the football and score points. And I could see a lot of kids wanting to play for him. I just think you've got a guy who's got a real edge to him, and I think he knows what he's doing on offense. And I think they're going to make a bunch of noise. I'm going to keep an eye on the Hornets just because I know what this guy's done as an offensive coach over the last few years, and I think he will make it really interesting for people there.
It's going to be exciting for a lot of people here. I know a lot of people are excited to see what Cam Skattebo can do in the playoffs here for Arizona State. And if you haven't read Bruce's article about Cam and those telling stories about him, it's really a must-read from The Athletic. Bruce, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. I'm a big fan of your work. Thank you for joining us, and love to talk to you again in the future.
Thanks so much for the kind words and about the story. I really appreciate it. Happy New Year. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you. Happy New Year to you as well. That's Bruce Feldman from The Athletic. When we come back, more show to get to, more on the Kings and Sean Salisbury, as well as the 8 o'clock hour continues here on Sactown Sports.
You never know what you might hear when listening to us.